In this video, we're going to talk about job design, or as my guest calls it, job crafting. That's coming up right now. Hi there, I'm Andrea Adams and the host of HR Shop Talk. On the show, you get expert insight into all kinds of things that have to do with HR. I encourage you to subscribe to the show or subscribe to the podcast to keep learning from my guests. Today, my guest is Dr. Benjamin Ritter. Ben is the founder of Live for Yourself Consulting and a self-proclaimed values geek who's been guiding leaders and organizations towards careers that they love. He also has a who's who list of clients, including Amazon, Coursera, Google, and a whole bunch of others. Hi, Ben.
Hello. And who's on your list? I just want to say that over and over again, and I just now want a pet owl. I'm just...
All right. So we're going to talk about job design. And you're on a project right now where you're talking about job design. So tell me about it.
Job design, or how I like to call it, job crafting.
Right. And I will get to asking you about specifically what you mean when it comes to crafting.
Yeah, maybe I just like that because I grew up with my father fixing houses, and just this idea of having a tool belt and going into your job is just an empowering concept. The fact that we can change our job, that our job is not held in shackles by the job description or by how we were trained to do it or how people used to do it, that a job actually can be designed for your strengths and for your desires, for the rest of your career, for the department's needs, for the organization's needs. And this is a very different way of thinking about how we work and how leaders are supposed to lead.
You're talking about designing a job for a person, right?
Or an owl, if you have one at work. I mean, but no, yeah, for people, for individuals, and for designing it for yourself.
Right. So, I've always heard, I don't know how many times, think about the job, not the person. I mean, that's polar opposite to what I've been taught.
One of the greatest, I think, misconceptions is like this desire to match people to certain strengths and competencies that are required for a role.
Yes.
And I mean, there's a really great book out there called The 9 Lies About Work. One of the lies is that that competencies exist. And, think about the successful people in your life, like from different leaders, different people that different jobs. They all have different personalities. They all have different strengths. Mm-hmm. If we try to use a cookie cutter version of what someone needs to be successful in a job, we're going to miss out on those individuals. And it's also just not very true. So when we think about design, we really want to design a job towards somebody so that they can be more productive, they can be more, efficient, but also that they're more engaged in their work, they're more engaged in the organization, so they don't leave. As well as if someone thinks they need to leave to go find a job that's going to fit the next step they want in their career and don't believe they can create that next step for themselves in their organization, I mean, we're just automatically creating the story where we're going to lose our best people.
Anybody who's been in a job that doesn't quite suit them, they probably hear the angels right now. Like, that sounds amazing. From a human resources perspective, would you be catering to people's whims? Like, oh, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. I don't like that. Take that out of my job and give me all the glamorous stuff.
Well, I would say I'm okay with that. And okay. People don't always ask for all the glamorous stuff. I don't think that's fully the case, and not exactly what I'm saying. But we can talk about recruiting in a second, but I like where this is going, just in the sense of, well, how do you then get people to do the work that you need to do? So there's like given aspects of a job that people need to do. So for example, someone who comes into a job, they get trained, they learn, they're learning about the organization, they're building confidence in their skills and just their subject matter expertise. But now in a one-on-one with the leader, you're sitting down and that leader is going, what do you really like about the job? What are you struggling with? And then as they share with you what they like and what they're struggling, you help promote more of what they like. And then where they're struggling, you help them solve. So you coach them to solve it. You find new ways to do what they don't like. You now have information to praise them for the things they don't like. So maybe they don't like them as much, or now they figure out new ways of doing it, or you delegate it off and say, do we really need to do this anymore? Can we get somebody else to do this that actually likes that part of the work? And so it's not automatically saying you don't have to do this. It's saying, how can I support you more in doing this? How can I make this more enjoyable for you? How can I highlight the meaning behind the things that you're doing so you actually are interested in doing it? Or how do we, bring you along to help you either delegate it out or adjust just the work itself? And this is just for that one function in terms of the actual work. And there's other parts of this that relate to different aspects of job satisfaction.
Let's just back up a little bit, because we're sort of getting ahead of ourselves. So few of us in HR ever get to do job design. So can you talk to me about the process?
I think the process mainly happens between the leader and the associate. But so now we're talking on the HR end. I think a lot of the work is front loaded in conversations with the hiring managers. So you're sitting down with them, and when you're putting together the posting for the position and what they need, we can take it upon ourselves to go, what work really needs to get done in this role? How is this work been getting done right now? Are there potential other ways for it to get done? What backgrounds are part of the people within your department right now? Where's conflict normally coming from? What type of individual personalities might we have to avoid? Where might we actually want to focus on in terms of certain traits and characteristics? What really motivates the people that work for you? Do you know that information? What motivates you? Let's look for that meaning in people that we're bringing in as well. So you're using the core concepts of job design to help you find individuals that fit what is actually the culture of your department and what comes from the work that you do.
I was just thinking about, being someone who's been in a role for a long time. And initially when they took the job, and I've been in this position, they liked what they were doing. But then over time, there were aspects that just became dull and boring, and they don't want to do those parts anymore. How do you cope with that sort of thing in this environment?
Some people tend to crave novelty, tend to crave professional growth. And you don't know that information unless you actually sit down and have a conversation with this individual. For the first step is finding out why this person might be acting a little bit more disengaged. If someone actually stops liking their work, you're going to notice it with how they interact and engage with their work. So in terms of meetings, are they speaking up? Are they staying silent? Are they sharing certain aspects and progress towards their work? When someone tends to starts disengaging, it means that they are losing a sense of motivation as it relates to the organization, to their team, and to the work itself. So it's your job as a leader to intervene and have a conversation about the three main pillars of job satisfaction, which are the actual work that you're doing, the people that they engage with, so the social relationships, and the meaning behind the work. So it's your job to prompt those questions. And so then let's say you find out this person doesn't like this aspect of their job. Yeah. So what do you think a leader should do in that situation when someone has enough trust and feels comfortable enough to share with their leader that they're struggling?
Sorry, you just asked me a question. I'm in the midst of imagining how that actually just feels, and having that kind of trust in my leader.
I do feel that there's a little bit of resistance to why would ever anyone say that to their leader? Why would they ever share that they don't like a certain aspect of their job? And this is where, to get this type of information, a leader has to provide the question prompts to show that they actually care about this type of information and that they're willing to change when that type of information comes up. People listening might say, there's no way employees will be that trusting to share that information with their leader. Wow, that's scary to think that. That's really scary, because then you have no chance of retaining your employees.
If you found this thought-provoking, subscribe to see all the episodes and comment. Have you done job description? It's probably not like what we're talking about here, but let us know how it did go. Let us know in the comment section. It sounds like everyone in this kind of environment, everyone in HR, they would have to be very nimble.
Can I give a specific example for a second? So I have an old coworker in an old organization, and that person was actually going to quit their job. They got a new offer in a new area, a new location around the world that their current organization said they couldn't work in. And so she went to her company, and before this already tried to negotiate to work in this other country. And HR said no. HR put up a roadblock and said, we can't make that work. Well, she got a new job offer. She put in her notice, and They asked, is there anything we can do for you? And she said, no, I really want to work in this country. And she was putting in a couple of months because the new job offer, started later on. Not only did they approve her ability to work in that country, but they also increased her pay significantly to match the new offer. If they said, yes, you could work there, she wouldn't have gone to get a new job offer. She wouldn't have needed a drastic increase in pay, right? She wouldn't have had that negativity related to the organization. But because HR didn't want to be flexible and didn't want to make things work for the individual, whatever the reasons, they now have cost the organization a ton of money and probably impacted the productivity rate of that individual employee and anyone that she shared this information with. So I don't really see it as being nimble. I see it as just putting the employees first in a way that maybe hasn't been done before.
What you were saying there was making me think, though, you get a leader is more likely comes to you and says, well, my employee wants to work in this company. Can you help me make that happen? And the HR rep says, let me check into it, and goes up the chain, and the chain says no. And then it comes back down the chain. It may not have been HR that was the barrier. Somewhere, someone just doesn't want to deal with it.
Which is maybe the conversations overall need to be, they need to be changed. It's not HR going up the chain and asking for permission. It's the leader, it's the HR business partner, whoever's involved, maybe even the employee, that all are in a meeting. Why aren't all the stakeholders involved in these types of decisions?
I think because it would be, every time an employee wants something, which is fairly, like if you've got a lot of employees, if you're a flat organization, that could happen fairly often. And to have that many meetings about everybody's various wishes for their role. I want to work part-time. I want to, who knows, whatever it is, just gets to be a lot. Or at least I think that people like me who've been in pretty traditional HR, a fear that would happen.
There's so much fear around, well, what if this happens?
Yes.
It's going to be overwhelming. And then you find out like nobody does it. I'm sorry, in all my experiences, less positive things have happened because of a fear of being overworked or having too many people being interested in something than have actually happened. I think there's a strong opportunity to say, how do we do more for our employees? And then if it gets overwhelming, how do we invent a process that makes it non-overwhelming?
Right.
So for something like this, you have your standard promotions, you have your standard times for evaluation, you have the standard places where people can work, you have your standard acceptable part-time, whatever flexibilities, standard contract for contracts. But then let's say you have one of your high performers getting ready to leave the organization, come in with a request. What is the process to manage this to ensure that you're not just giving them some standard template answer? Right. Because in this type of economy, organizations cannot do this anymore. For example, I work with a lot of clients who are pivoting out of their companies and they're starting businesses. And now mostly the work that I do is leadership development and career development. But when I was working with these individuals, the first client that the clients would get would be their old employer, because they would turn around and they were so valuable that they didn't want to lose them. So they kept them on. They could have avoided all that if they just improved the work environment where that person was. So now they're paying 3 to 5 times more for the exact same work that the person would do, but for less hours. For an organization that might be small and nimble, it would be, I could see how this would work. But for an organization that's been quite traditional for a long time, it would be an enormous backlog of issues that. Well, what are we talking about? So what are these issues might be? So if we're talking about like job design or curating a job to assist with an employee, and these aren't actual changes to the person's job title. These aren't actual changes to the person's comp. This is actually the leader saying, instead of working at 8 a.m., you can work at 10 a.m. That's okay. You work better midday. You work better at night. That's part of job design. Or, hey, you don't really get along with Stacy. Great. Let's adjust this project after we've done some mediation. You don't work with Stacy anymore, right? We have a different project for you to work on. Right. I'm thinking about, I've worked in unionized environments where, you think about mechanics, there's a number of vehicles that have to be maintained. There's only a few bays. And so the people have to work overnight. And generally speaking, that's a distasteful. There are a few people out there who like working nights, but that's kind of a
kind of work, but you have to have people working nights. But what do you think? How do you approach that?
It really is what the employees desire. So let's say you need people to work nights. So you set the expectations that these people work nights, or you rotate it depending on what you need.
Yeah.
But then you sit down and have a conversation with the person doing nights, and you say, what's your biggest struggle? Oh, the lighting is horrible. Great. Let's get you some new lighting. Mm-hmm. Or I really, I don't really get a chance to talk to my kids, right before they go to bed. Okay, maybe you start an hour later so you get a chance to put your kids to bed. Mm-hmm. Or maybe you actually get to listen to music while you work, or go on a phone call while you work with one earbud in. So now we're going to accept one earbuds instead of saying no earbuds. Mm-hmm. So I think there's just adjustments that you can make to help people feel a little bit more like they're part of their job instead of being told to do their job.
Thinking about it from the perspective of someone like me who's worked in fairly traditional environments, how would someone get started with a really more flexible kind of approach to job design?
It really depends what function HR has. Do you have someone that's responsible for talent development? Are you responsible for the talent development and engagement? Or, so who is actually having these types of conversations with leaders, and can you get involved with them? And it's really, you don't have to do much other than start changing the mindset around what is expected from someone in their job, what is expected from a leader, and are we providing this information, this training, to top down from senior leadership all the way down in terms of how we think about work and how we think about our employees. And so the first thing you can do, I think, is actually just start bringing up this topic. What's more important to us, our policies or our people?
I would guess in many of those organizations, they'll want to say people, but the reality is policy.
Yeah. Well, then go look at your data. So if you're in HR right now, go look at your turnover data. And look for where turnover is higher than others, and say, okay, so we're going to go dive into this data, and we're going to start exploring, some potential opportunities to reduce these rates, and show that having conversations around job design, around crafting your work, about figuring out what's important to your employees, show that decreases turnover. And now you have information that you can actually start broadening this out throughout the organization. So have a little test pilot.
This has been a different type of conversation than the ones I usually have, but do you have anything to add to my HR audience out there?
So much.
Okay. Well, think of what did we miss here?
In general, the conversations that we have about work as HR professionals tend to be organization first. And we can say the same things that we say normally in a different way, and highlight that we put people first. And that can have a drastic impact on how open people are towards us, and the fact that we can actually get more done when people do believe in us and trust us and think that we have their best interests at heart, because we really do.
Now, can I just challenge you though on that, the organization first? The organization is first, because without the organization, there is no job.
So the point is that if we have a policy in place and we can communicate that policy, that we don't dismiss an employee's wishes or a conversation with that employee based on that policy. Sometimes people just need to be heard. They don't need empty promises, but they need to sit down and say, this is the issue. And as an HR professional, you could say, well, this is the policy, which sometimes tends to happen, instead of saying, tell me more about that.
Right.
This is good, and we really want to hear this from you.
Right.
Maybe in the future we can adjust this, but for right now, I really just want to understand what's going on.
Right.
And that's honestly at the heart of job design, because if we can listen to people about why they do what they do and what they want to do, we're able to then adjust the work accordingly. Maybe not immediately, but accordingly. And as HR professionals, we can be the role models of these types of conversations.
So that was do you have anything else to add? And that was pretty interesting. So now, do you have anything else to add?
I think that's probably it. If anyone wants to reach out, feel free to find me on LinkedIn, Dr. Benjamin Ritter, or go to liveforyourselfconsulting.com. I'm happy to keep the conversation going.
Okay. Well, thanks for coming on. And it was really fun to have a different kind of discussion about how we do things in HR. I did an episode on improving the employee experience, which is an emerging element of HR. And that link is right here. Thanks for watching and see you next time.